Goodness, it's kind of starting to get kind of cool out here. I ain't gonna sit here and lie. Watch me complain in the future, talking about something. Oh, it's cold as hell in this room. No, yeah, it probably is going to be, but also at the same time, can I blame myself for that? Because high key, there is no heating in this room. It's gonna be a cold ass time for me to record anything, and sometimes it might get too damn cold, so I can't necessarily record anything. Honestly, one of those big moments where I'm kind of just like, yeah, I kind of would like to be a big ass content creator, so I don't have to deal with this type of problem no more. But when it comes down to it, there is a problem that I do feel like we do need to address when it comes down to it. And that is, can you really sell a lewd game in this day and age? Or at least, could it be possible for it to actually do well? Because I feel like initially, yes, you absolutely can. But when it comes down to it, will it even do well? Because obviously with a lot of the talk with DOA and, you know, how people kind of been bringing that up in every which way, shape, and form, it kind of just made me think, like, if somebody were to bring back old franchise, old series, old games, or make new games that have, like, raunchy elements in it or lewd things to go about it, could it actually sell pretty decently? Could it sell actually well? And how far could you really go with it, right? Because I do feel like people are accepting towards sexy things in games, but there's a level of like how far people will actually go for that sort of thing, right? And it's kind of it's always been like a weird toss-up, even in, you know, obviously the industry side, duh, because, you know, they'll be very much happy to have that sort of lewd content when it comes to more realistic looking games. But when it comes to anime style looking games, or just games like that in general, or just really Eastern games, they'll hoe everybody to the last breath, and that's just ultimately how it is. But when it comes down to it, though, it is just like a good ass question, because, and the reason why I bring this up is because since DOA is getting so much talk now, and people being like, yeah, we want a DOA 7, we want to see that kind of happen, there has also been people that has been trying to gatekeep DOA, and kind of saying that it's kind of counterintuitive for this sort of thing to be a thing. But I kind of get why people are like that, right? Because ultimately, if, you know, Xbox get their hands, most likely they will get their hands on another DOA game, and the current Team Ninja is, you know, working for that modern audience, then 9 times out of 10, the game is not going to be gaming. The game is not going to be hitting nearly as hard as we would like it to hit, and that will be absolutely a shame if another DOA came out again and essentially just be what DOA 6 was in terms of like hiding things or trying to tone things down, which people have said in the Ninja Gaiden 4 that apparently it's a little toned down for what they thought a Ninja Gaiden would be, which doesn't really bode too well for a future title of Dead or Alive 7. So that doesn't really bode effing well at all. Like, let's be real, people will buy a DOA game. Like, that is gonna be the case. You will have people interested. That is true. But ultimately, how much of that is going to be allowed to be true DOA? How much of that is going to be allowed to be what it is? And then it makes me think about, you know, other ways of selling raunchier games, or how raunchier games would usually be something that is out there, but then again, how the modern audience kind of is, and how they kind of hold a lot of these sort of stuff. Projects like these don't really get much of any of a green light, or if it does, it gets held in some shape or form by journalists or whoever the hell, and it's just very much a tiring time. Stellar Blade is one of those games that is obviously not hiding what it wants to be, and then it got shitted on by so many damn people, right? Senran Kagura is easily one of those games that people very much recognize, but at the very same time, it got hoed to oblivion to the point the franchise is a bit dead at the point, right? At this point, right? Yes, obviously there's the Project N that's going to come out, and that's going to be a grand time, but it's going to be grand time for Japan people only, and it's a mobile game. So ultimately, it's not good. I do think another part of this too that people need to realize is that not every piece of media is going to be for them. So they'll really, if I feel like if they're gonna make something like a, you know, a DOA 7, and they want to really just stick with what DOA actually was, let's just say, they actually had the balls to do something like that, then it doesn't necessarily need to be a ultra real fighting game, because that was killed DOA 6 first of all. Like, let's just be absolutely real. They try to chase after that modern audience back so damn much that it ended up ruining what DOA 6 could have been, and that's a bit of a shame. Just because you make a product does not necessarily mean it should be open for everybody like your wife's ass crack. Like, let's just keep it very much a set. Certain people is gonna like certain things, and that's perfectly fine. If you just cater to those people that like the certain things, then hey, who knows, more people might jump into it just because of how weird it is, or how crazy it can go, and all that sort of stuff, right? Like, could you honestly, legitimately imagine if Danganronpa decides to actually make a legit fighting game? If they make it a legit fighting game, do you think for 5 seconds Kodaka is gonna tone down what the game actually is, of like the characters and the lore and anything like that? If he does that, I think that's absolutely horseshit, but at the very same time, I don't think they're gonna let him, or he's gonna let that happen. And obviously, he's one of those people that is like, yo, if you like my games, if you like the weird stuff that I do, then you'll have a good time with me. And that's kind of how he always has been. So if they do a dangin' fighting game, I could see them tossing like Kodako in the game, and then using some of her crazy ass sexual groping abilities to kind of just straight up molest the enemy into submission to take the damn victory. Would a lot of FGC people F with that? Hell no. They'll be denouncing this game and saying it's the absolute worst thing on the planet, yet while we'll be eating this shit up and be absolutely fine. And sure, obviously not every single Danganronpa fan likes UDG, but ultimately, if you got no problem with it, you're gonna have a fun ass time. And there's also just not even that, there's just crazy other things that Dangan characters just do in general. So if you added that into the game, I could very much see people just not wanting to play it at all. But yet, people that want a Danganronpa game, we're gonna be chilling, we're gonna be having a good time, and it's gonna be fun for us. Right? And that goes back again to being like, yo, not every single game needs to be, for everybody. You could just have it to be for you, and that's just how it is. And I guess this brings up like a more so personal point for me, is that at some point in time, if this channel does what I actually wanted to do for 5 seconds and actually, grow into a way I never thought was possible, if I ever get the money to make it happen, I would very much love to have the cast from JX Explorer to kind of, exist in a playable media of some kind, where it's an action game, an open world-ish sort of game, a fighting game, whatever the case may be. There is definitely, without a doubt, going to be raunchy ass elements into the game. You don't think Jay's grab in a fighting game, if he's playing against a female character, is going to be grabbing some boob? It's totally going to be that shit. It's going to be that unapologetically going to be a grab animation for that, right? There's definitely going to be things like a, clothes break, a dress break, or something like that that's going to happen in the game. And if it's only going to be a PC game, yeah, I'm probably going to maybe include a special patch that you could download externally of the game, which is going to be basically the game's own nude mod. Like, that is essentially what I would potentially do if it's within the realm of possibility to make that work. And honestly, I wouldn't even care to sell it to like a big wide variety of people, and that's just ultimately how it is. I would just more so care for people that actually care about the series, care about those characters, and follow that story to really just, be for it, right? That's just really how it is. That's just how it is for me, and same thing with an action game sort of way, and just all that sort of stuff. There will be definitely elements of lewd, raunchy stuff that would just happen, and whether or not it does well, I would like to hope it would, but at the same time, I want it to really be for the people that's absolutely fine with stuff like that, and just not necessarily worry about it to a high extent. Is that all the game all is going to be? Of course not, but it's going to be a big part of the game, or at least a half part of the game. It's going to be part of the identity of what, anything I create of that franchise, or really that series, damn franchise, the hell I'm talking about, but that series actually really is. There's just so many different oppositions and obstacles that basically kind of get in the way when people end up trying to make projects like this, or make products like that and stuff in general, because, people obviously a lot of times are not effing with things like this, and then they will very much, try to shame you for playing certain games like that and stuff like that too. And it's just like, are you serious? Like, why not? If you could have all these other games that exist out here, do all these other crazy stuff, then why not have a game that leans it towards this sort of nature, right? I don't really see why that's such a huge negative when it comes down to it, when it could be something that can absolutely be done, and it's not necessarily going to be the worst thing on the planet, right? That's just how it is. Like, granted, you can't have a game with like full blown clapping straight cheeks, right? You can't just necessarily just have it like a modded Mugen and then just have a character grow a Fuda and then just absolutely go to town. That's not possible, but ultimately you can get some levels of it where it's like, okay, this is basically how I want this thing to be, going this far, and maybe just, leading into this sort of thing that, yeah, it could do it if it had the ball, it's not even the balls, it's just if you had the capabilities of doing so without it getting taken down for 5 seconds, right? That's just ultimately how it is. But just to kind of round things off, it is very annoying that games like these or ideas like that just has to get hit with so many different obstacles as to why it can't work out, or whether it's because of people's mentalities and how they view games like that and just things like that in general. And it's just a very much boring and bland space. It creates a boring and blandness to a high ass extent because people ain't necessarily able to, challenge the medium of what they're trying to go ahead and do. That's why I like, again, ecchi shows and what they do, because they oftentimes challenge what you're actually seeing. An ecchi show can do a lot of this and this. That's kind of crazy. I didn't know how far they can go with that, so I wonder what they can do next. And then Nugatashi kind of broke that whole mold of that, and it was like, what the absolute hell? You can literally animate that and show it, and that is an anime? That's crazy. So that's just ultimately how it is, right? I wish we had that boundary for, gaming, to actually just push past it and see how far we can actually go with an anime aesthetic and stuff like that. Because realistic games, they will do that. They can absolutely do that, and that's whatever, right? Who cares? It's realistic. But an anime sort of looking stylized game, that's something that hasn't been attempted yet. So I would like to see that in a way more cool, actual, genuine, good game sort of way, instead of just what we currently have, right? And that's just ultimately how it is for me. But yeah, I don't know if this video made sense, but basically my whole point is just, I wish we had more games that is out here like DOA, Senran Kagura, and whatever. People creating those type of ideas and essentially just not being restricted so damn much to do what they need to do. I just wish we was in a point in time where we didn't have to worry about certain developers coming through to these different games and projects and essentially just trying to butcher them in any shape and form that they absolutely can, missing and basically robbing the spirit of what that game could actually be because of certain things that they don't really agree with. Like, I really hate that to a high extent, and I sincerely wish that game developments and developers, when it comes down to it, would just let people cook the way they want to cook instead of trying to force certain ways to be certain things and certain waypoints of how things kind of go. That's just my whole main point of it, right? That's just really how it is for me. But yeah, that's essentially all I really wanted to say for this one, so hopefully you did enjoy. If you did, be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell notification on your way out. Also follow me on the socials, and if you'd like to donate to the channel, go find Cash App is available as well. And until then, it's me, boy Jay, signing off. Have a blessed day.